Hello and welcome to the Expanded Woman Network podcast. I'm your host, Sherry Gideons, and this is my co-host, Misty Willis.
Hello, everybody. So today we are talking with one of our great people, Melanie Galaviz, and she is going to talk to us about our 6 steps to leading to positive change. She is currently the owner of Snapology Grapevine Keller, and she provides some amazing STEAM services to our kiddos. And I guess you could do adults too, but yeah, she has some amazing camps going on. And we just want to hear a little bit about you today, Melanie, if you want to tell us about yourself and how you got started and a little bit about leadership. So we'll continue with that.
Great. Hi, I'm Melanie. I have been in the DFW area really kind of all my life, grew up in this area and really started off in retail, and that's where my leadership journey started. I had to take a little bit of a detour last year in 2019. I have a son who received an autism diagnosis. And when I was in retail, I was traveling all the time and really, kind of out all over the country, and needed to make, that kind of big decision to be home with my son and help him just kind of get settled and help us get settled through this new diagnosis and with school and all the things that were going on. So I kind of walked away from that big career that I had, which I know can be really scary, but, I connect with all of these women entrepreneurs because for a lot of us, that's how all of us, well, probably not all of us, but that is how a lot of us ended up starting our own businesses and doing what we do. So, my son has a hyper focus in STEM and STEAM and science, and if I do this, what happens, and what happens if I take it apart, and how can I put it all together? So when I was looking for activities for him to be engaged in, I was really having a hard time finding things that were both educational and fun, because that is the key for kids. They will learn if they're having fun, but also that had social skill development, that had some kind of teachers or the people leading the camps or classes that had an understanding of typical and non-typical learners. My son is high functioning, so when you have a conversation with him, he's very intelligent. It's almost like you're talking to a teenager in all the sass and everything that comes along with that too. But then his emotional control is really like a toddler. So the outburst and, just regulations and that kind of stuff. So I was having a really hard time finding places that had the teams in place that knew how to encourage that kind of learning. So when it came down to it, I decided I had to do it myself. So there's definitely a need. I know there's a lot of parents and a lot of families in the same situation, whether it's, non-typical learner or not. Parents want a place for their kids to be able to go to get hands-on education, engaging and socially growing with other children, but doing it in a way and with topics that are fun. And that's when I found Snapology. So we started last fall, really doing classes in schools and preschools and private schools and kind of all over the Metroplex. And, really we're kind of at the end of wrapping up our summer camp season and getting ready to figure out what we're going to do, with obviously all the at-home learning and everything that's going on with COVID. So I was super excited to get to talk to you guys because there's so much change happening in the world right now, and it can be positive change if we have the right mindset and we take the right actions for it.
Absolutely.
Well, let me just say this, kudos to you. And the reason I say that is because I always take a spiritual approach to things, a journey of understanding, the element of why certain things occur. And a lot of this happens for you to grow and to help other people grow and to help other people step in and tap into that greater awareness that's inside of them. My daughter was a nanny to high-functioning twin boys with autism. And so much of the things that you just described were what were most vibrant about them. They were so smart. They were when it came to imagination, their imaginations were incredible. One time I went to visit when my daughter was pregnant. And one of the boys said to me, Kim Kardashian, when he saw me, come off the plane. He's like, Ashley, your mother is beautiful. She was Kim Kardashian. It was just so amazing, because when you reach them at their level, what comes out of them is incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And the key is having people around them that, I've always said, even before my son had a diagnosis, he grew up in Montessori school, and really that meet the child where they are. That's been a philosophy of mine just with people. You have to meet people where they are, and children are no different. So, as adults or educators or leaders, when we can meet people where they are, you're always going to find that unlock, and you're always going to be able to bring out the best in whoever that person is. It's when we demand that people meet our expectations or meet us is where the conflict and challenge, and really we end up not going anywhere. So I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Can you real quick tell us, others might not know, what is STEAM or STEM?
Yeah, so STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art is a big piece of what we do, and mathematics. So STEM was kind of the original, out there, probably 5 or 10 years ago, it became the big thing. But that art aspect of being in the sciences is very important. So everything that we do is based in building materials. So Lego is a really huge piece of what we use, but we also use Connects and some other types of materials. So when we start incorporating art into, especially the Lego aspect of it, it really becomes, and we start with 3-year-olds, right? So it really becomes the first introduction to pixelation that later turns into video game design or computer programming. So those art pieces really are in all of the science, curriculums or departments in schools or whatever it may be. And that's one of our differentiators, is that we really do include that art aspect in all of our curriculums as well.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, because, it makes me think about the public school system versus the approach that you're talking about. Because when you use the words meet people right where they're at, if we could all just have that belief system and understand, as you've been discussing, these children are individuals. It's just like myself, when I was in 3rd grade, I had a math teacher that called me out in front of the class. And he was really upset with me because I wasn't understanding the concepts that he was sharing and trying to, help us learn. But the truth is that he made a fool of me in front of the class. And so that set up a subjective belief about myself. And so from then on out, I hated math. And, I developed that whole shut off around, any kind of understanding about math. So when I hear you saying, meeting the children right where they're at, I mean, first thing is projection and judgment. Yeah. And so many of us, if we could just open ourselves up, to what you're sharing, holy mackerel, all of us would be unlocked.
There's some really great research out there, and I'm not going to try to quote the numbers, but the essence of it is, when you talk to elementary and even middle school girls, and you ask them, and the surveys ask them, what do they want to be when they grow up, right?
Right.
You tend to get way more, I want to be a scientist or an astronaut or a computer programmer or a video game designer from the elementary school girls. And they're so interested in it. But then when they get into middle school, it's gone. They want to be teachers and they want to be nurses, and these more like stereotypical women's, what they see out in the world being portrayed as a woman's job. So when I really sat down and thought about like my mission and what I'm doing and why my business is going to be impactful to our community, that was a really big piece of it too, because the research also shows that when young girls, especially in that elementary and middle school, when they have role models and they see women in positions in science, in STEM, in computer, programming, then they aspire, they see that they can be. So my job is to keep these girls engaged so they can see me and they can see my teachers and they can see us, whether it's from a start a business standpoint or an engineering standpoint, they can really see that they can absolutely do this too. And we can keep them turned on to the sciences, because that is where the jobs of our future are going to be, is in that STEM environment. And we need these girls to grow up and be powerful scientific women, that are really making an impact on our world.
Oh, I was just getting chills while you're saying that, because it's something I love math. I know it's weird, but I do. I love math. I've always been really good at it, which kind of led me into a career I've always been in a manly career up until now. In the last 4 years, I've been in a manly career. I did industrial sales and supply chain management and aerospace. So I really can resonate with that. And I think part of it is because I was raised by my dad, and my dad, I kind of looked up to him as far as what he was doing. But had I been maybe raised by mom, and shown that, oh, well, women do these types of things, I might not have gotten into that type of career. But I'm so grateful that I did. Yeah. So that's awesome. I love hearing that.
I've mirrored my mom's career, she was the corporate, like big wig at the corporate and all that kind of stuff, and traveled, and, and in hindsight, I didn't realize it until like really 10 or 20 years into my career. I was like, wow, I ended up really emulating my mom, completely unaware that in a different industry, but certainly the same things without even realizing it. So, for me, that really resonated as I can be that, not only for my son, but for all the kids in our community that come into our camps and come into our classes. So I totally agree.
Well, the thing that speaks so clearly to me is that you have become consciously aware of conditioned and modeled behaviors. And so in that, tapping into probably a lot of silence, a lot of reflection on, your purpose, the direction you want to go as you've expanded and opened up this for yourself. The thing that I think really resonates in my heart about you is that you want to do it right. You want to touch these children's lives and help them to realize that they're unlimited, that, even if there's what we would like to call a stereotypical diagnosis of who they are, what they are, the bottom line is they're no different than you and I. Yeah. They have within them the same power, the same ability to be anything. And I have the chills as I'm saying this. I really felt that from you as you spoke.
My personal story, I lost my husband when I was 30, and he had an 8-year battle with cancer, and he was 29 when he died. And because we had 8 years and we were young, and, we didn't really, I think, grasp mortality and, just everything going on with that at the time. But we made very conscious decisions of, this has to be for something. It can't be for nothing. What is your legacy going to be? What is my legacy going to be? It just makes you really think about your time is so fragile. You never know how much time you're going to have. And every person you engage with, I want to leave this earth with every person I've engaged with saying, I'm a better person because I knew Melanie. Because when Zach died, he was 29 years old. It was in Arlington, and over 1,000 people came to his funeral. And every one of them we had no idea, and everyone coming up with a very special story of a very personal way that he impacted them, and the lasting, kind of feeling that will stay with all of these kids, like people that haven't seen him in 10 years, still had these stories from high school and junior high and elementary school. And, it really, really resonated with me that his life was not wasted. He really made a difference. And that's something that I live every single day for, that anyone I come in contact with, it has to be for something. And anything I'm going to do, whether it's business or personal or friendships, there has to be a value add, to other people and our community, and ultimately our kids. So that definitely is the core of everything.
Wow, I love that. Thank you.
So touching. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm such an emotional girl.
Well,
But I love your story.
12 years now, so I can talk about it now.
Yes,
probably
yes.
years I wouldn't have been able to do that, but it's definitely, it makes it worth it when you're like, okay, I can push through this because I know something good's going to happen from it.
Yeah. And I can see just your vision and why you're such a good leader, right? Because you have your why.
Yes.
You know why you want to do this. You know what you want to leave the legacy of and how you're going to show everyone who you are. And I love that. So tell us a little bit about your 6 steps to leading to positive change. How did you come upon that? I know this is something that you had listened to and you were just motivated by.
Yeah, I've always had a passion for leadership and organizational development. It's I've been in retail forever, but the training and the teaching and that leaving a lasting impression. I tended to work with, especially earlier in my career, my employees were high school and college kids. So they were kind of at that age where they're not really listening to their parents, right? And so they're listening to their friends, and maybe their friends are giving them good advice, maybe they're not, but as a 20-something-year-old working in the mall, working in retail, I really took it as a personal and really coached all of my team that we have a personal responsibility to teach these kids how to be good humans, how to be good employees, how to be good leaders. And so that was an approach. I was always looking for motivation or tools or things that I could use with my teams, to help elevate their development and their ability to go back and do the same for others. So I'm a big TED Talk advocate. I love TED Talks. I love the short snippets, and you can get just that oomph from it, and then go on with your day. So I was on a plane, and I was scrolling through looking at TED Talks and found this one by Miss Kantor. She's a Harvard business professor, I think one of the head ones. And she had this TED Talk on the 6 steps to leading positive change. And as I was literally on an airplane and was crying because she was talking about me. I was like, this is everything I believe in. And she put it into words and a frame, right? So I really took that, and in the organization that I was working with, I developed a accelerated leadership program really kind of based around it, or I did a workshop for our accelerated leadership program based around it. And, with everything going on with COVID right now and all of our individual businesses and all the women businesses out there, I just feel like it's a very appropriate time to kind of maybe reframe how we're looking and thinking about all the things that are changing in our world and in our families and in our businesses. So that's kind of how I came across it anyway, and why I wanted to share it with you guys.
I love that. My degrees are in communications and organizational leadership and stuff like that. And I think at the core of your heart, I mean, the whole feeling around all that is to once again help people tap in to releasing and letting go of all these beliefs that don't serve them, and inviting them and opening them up into a greater, grander expression of who they are. So how do you start that process in these 6 steps of leadership? Because I noticed that you do it in all areas of life. So and you're working specifically with kids, aren't you, from a certain age category?
Yeah, I think the 6 steps of leading positive change is really geared towards the leaders, and it's not necessarily something I would teach to the kids. It's what we kind of ingrain and believe within our business, but also within, our personal relationships and any of the change that's coming. So kind of what I would always tell my teams is, before anything really big happened, a big meeting or a strategy that we needed to develop, or, something that was going on that was going to be a change. When you get that some people, when something's going to change, you get that like feeling inside where you're scared or you're nervous or you're, whatever that feeling is for you. I always tell people, use that as a trigger. Like that's your body telling you, your mind and your heart telling you that, hey, like be aware, be aware, because something, we can do something about this, if you have a strategy and if you have a plan. So I would always go back and watch the TED Talk. I've watched it thousands of times just because it kind of gets me in that, like that mind frame, in that the right flow, open and willing and ready to go in. So, with everything going on with COVID, we've had to pivot our business, where I'm kind of on my third pivot now since
Wow. I was just going to use, everybody's pivoting right now.
Right. And
big time.
Yeah. So every time I get that, like, I just watched it again yesterday because of course today, we're announced, or it was announced that our area is going to be at home learning only, and no in-person school. So that means for me to serve my customers and my students, I have to approach that in a different way than I was going to before. So and we knew it was going to happen eventually. So I listened to it again, and I really use these 6 steps when I'm thinking about how I'm going to strategize to kind of into this next pivot. And also, the last 2 pivots that we've had to do, I did the same thing. So it's a tool in your toolbox that you can kind of pull back out when you're getting ready to do something that's necessary and impactful. And a lot of times for a lot of people, change is scary, so having that toolbox to go to, it really helps.
Mm-hmm.
And it
I
helps
know a lot.
decisions versus emotional decisions. And that's what I want to avoid as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, is not making those, those emotional decisions and trying to stay in your logical mind for what's right for everybody.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to kind of talk through it?
Yeah, please. What are those 6 steps and how can they apply?
Yeah, and I'm going to speak in reference to our women entrepreneurs and how you can really use these 6 steps in kind of our current times right now. So the first step is show up. So you have to, in order to be part of the solution, you have to show up. You have to show up to the meeting. You have to show up to the Zoom call. You have to show up to, whatever that conversation or whatever that challenge is. Unfortunately, since March, there's been a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of women, and a lot of business that just kind of went quiet. They went into the background. They weren't engaging with their customers. They were in that like maybe wait and see mode. So, the ones that really showed up and got in front and talked to their customers and helped them understand that we're all in this together, that we're going to be here for you too, those are the ones that are going to get through this process. Whatever our new normal is going to look like, that's going to get to that new normal eventually. But the first thing is you have to show up. You can't affect any change if you don't show up to the game.
Right.
So your presence really does make a difference. So I challenge all of you guys, when you get that Zoom meeting invite or you see, another thing that you have to go to, just really check yourself and go. Because if you don't go, you're not part of the solution. Right?
Heck yeah.
True. Very true.
So that's the first one. The second one is speak up. You have to have a voice. It's not enough to just be at the meeting or be in the Zoom call. And it's not just enough to sit there and have that, I call it passive agreement. So have you ever been, on a team or you're in a meeting and we make a collective agreement and everyone's like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. But in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to go along with this conversation, but I'm not going to do that. You have to be able to use your voice and speak up. If you inside know that you're not going to really drive through that and commit to whatever agreement or whatever that strategy or plan is, you're doing your team a disservice and you're doing your business a disservice, and really you're doing yourself a disservice. So please make sure you speak up, voice your opinion. Your voice matters. Your opinion matters. And even if you don't have the right solution, you don't have the right answer, you will spark conversation, and that's how you get to the really great stuff that happens. So the power of voice is super, super important. The other thing is I don't know if you've ever been in a meeting or even with your friends, you're trying to decide about dinner or
you're not going to really
I'm so
drive
sorry.
that.
I'm trying to make a comment, but I'm ruining it.
Sorry, no, that's okay.
Trust me, I've done that before myself. You know that. Anyway,
Sorry,
go on.
Melanie.
Nope. That's how it goes. Yeah.
I know.
When
Technology.
when you're in those situations, the person that names the problem is always the leader, becomes the leader. They may not be the manager or the owner or the boss, but the person that names the problem and starts the conversation to a solution is really the person that that shows the courage to be able to put themselves out there is the one that people really listen to. So be that leader, even if it's the wrong answer, you know, put it out there. Well, go watch the TED Talk. She gives some really good examples of that are, you know, more global too. So around speaking up, it's one of my favorite ones that she talks about in the TED Talk.
I love that because, you know, that's the whole thing, even with myself. You know, one of the things that when I teach as a coach that, you know, I really help people to realize your voice matters.
Yeah.
You know, what you're feeling matters. And it's a lot of times it's getting out of that thought process around, oh my God, what are they going to think if I say this or I bring this up? And in reality, we're honoring everybody's voice.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the examples she gives, and, you know, especially since we're speaking to our women entrepreneurs out there is, you know, she's a Harvard business professor. So she gives some examples of what her classes look like. And, you know, she really calls out that the men have no problem speaking out at all, you know, and often they will talk and talk and talk just to take up the airspace until they come to something, you know, that really matters. And she would go back and ask the women, what, you know, you have very valid opinions. I know you do. Why aren't you speaking up? The women tend to say, well, I wanted to wait until I had something valuable to add. And her response is, why? The men don't, you know, you got to get in the game and just put it out there, because just the action of putting out there and the conversation that happens in the room is what ultimately gets you to the right answer.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was just listening to this story the other day, and it was a podcast where this lady is talking about how her like counterpart at work, they did the same job. He was there for 6 months, asked for a raise within 6 months. Okay. And they said, no, you're not ready yet, you know, but then he came back again in 6 months and asked for a raise. And this whole time she never asked for a raise. And it's like, well, you can't get what you want sometimes if you don't ask or have the courage to ask for it. If you feel you deserve it, do it. I've gotten so many things in my life that way too. It's just because I asked a question and it was just a legitimate question. You don't go in saying like, well, this is going to happen, but you never know until you try. Absolutely. So I love that. I love that part. Speaking up, it's huge.
So my favorite one, and the one that I pull to, is the number 3, and it's look up. So, you know, for some people that may be religion, that may be faith. For some people, it could be, you know, that inner core of who you are. But really think about, why do you do what you do? What is your why? You know, why are you in this business? And on those mornings, and I know we have all had them, especially the last couple months, where you wake up in the morning and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, how did I end up in this place where we are scrapping so hard just to make it through? And when you can center yourself back to your why, you know, I do it for my kid. I do it for your kids. I do it for my team. I do it for my community. You can muster up that, like, okay, now we can go get it. Now let's go, instead of being on that, like, I do not want to get out of this.
And I like how when you just said that, how you just brought out, I mean, tap in that moment to that part of you that loves what you're saying.
Yeah. And you have to be able to do that. So vision and values matter. If you haven't really sat down and thought about what the vision and values of your company, of your business, of your friendship even, because I think a lot of this, can really be portrayed into some of those relationships too. What is your vision? What are your values? And pull to those things in those moments where you're like, I don't know if I can do this, or if I want to do this anymore. And it will always, for me anyway, it always brings me back to, okay, now I'm ready. Let's go. Let's tackle it. We can do it.
Love it.
Yeah. So the fourth step is team up. So everything is better when you have a partner.
Yes.
Point. Businesses and partners consistently do better when they have teams and when they've teamed up, whether it's with, people on their team, other organizations, other businesses that are doing the same things that you're doing. I think we tend to think of competition as competition, like we can't share, we can't work together. But I think that is one of the detriments of really kind of just business in general. There's so much shared best practices. There's so much shared efforts. There's so many things that we're all individually doing that could we collectively do and be more impactful, get better results, whatever it may be that your agenda is. More and better partners earlier in the process is always going to lead to more success. So, no one wants just one voice in the room, right? So team up with the people around you. For me, I have found, when I started this, and that was probably one of the biggest priorities that I had starting this business was going and finding my partners and who are going to be the people in my community that believe in the same things, that want to do better for people, that want to do better for our kids and for our community in general. And I need to go find them, and I need to make sure that I have a tribe that believes in the same things that I do. And I'm so lucky that I found that with the TWS, Together We Shine Women's Network, with you guys, and then with the Mid-Cities Montessori, community market and school. We've become really great partners to just get out there and do everything that we can. And we team up and we work for each other, with each other, and side by side together so that we can achieve what our vision and values are. So that's been a super huge, I think, reason why we're kind of making it through this, through all of the change with all the COVID and everything going on. So
I love that you're sharing that, because that is, when you're saying that, I have the chills through my whole body, because Misty knows how much this part means to me. It's togetherness, it's community, it's sharing each other's gifts and talents, it's uniting in oneness and developing this tribe so that we can stand on each other's shoulders and rise in that whole feeling that we all want: good and greater good, love, prosperity, all the abundance of the universe that is drawn into oneness. So thank you. My goodness, keep on telling us more.
With the teaming up, remember, I know your audience is, all over the country too. Some of my best partners, one's in Seattle and one's right outside of Raleigh in the Carolinas. So, they don't have to be side by side. You don't have to be right in the meeting, but, there's partnerships and there's teams in every shape, size, and way. So just make sure you have those teams that can help benefit you and your business and ultimately your leadership.
Yes.
So the fifth step is never give up. And this one is so key right now. Everything looks like a failure in the middle. So when you're in the middle and you hit an obstacle or you hit a roadblock or a global pandemic happens, we are just in the middle. If you stop right now, you are automatically a failure, so you can't give up in the middle. And you need to expect it also, like nothing ever just happens, right? You don't say, oh, I'm going to start a business and next year I am a great business. And, there's always things in between. And sometimes your middles are short, sometimes your middles are long. with this pandemic, it's probably, our middles are probably going to be a little longer than we've been used to in the past. And, that's okay. But it is important that if and when you get to that place where you're like, I really don't know if this is the right thing for me to do, really take a step back and just remind yourself, we're probably just in the middle. Like, we're just in the middle right now, and we have to push through it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give up, it's automatically a failure. So don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. Yeah. And then the last one, is lifting others up. And that's so, so important, that when you achieve success, or when you accomplish the challenge that you put out, or the change happened and, it wasn't the result that you wanted, but it was still a result, you have to bring others along on that ride, right? So when there's success, share that success with the people that helped get you there, lift them up, and continue to grow your team and grow the people, so that the next challenge that comes, you have people that want to go on that journey with you and aren't like, oh, well, we did all that and nothing happened, So really make sure you bring people along for that ride. I always told my teams in, my retail world that when we had a success, it was because you guys did an amazing job executing to whatever it was that we were doing. But if we failed or didn't have a success, that was my fault, because I didn't lead you to the greatness that I know you could accomplish. So, I really take that on in that way, that I don't get on stage and accept, awards and trophies. I bring my team, or maybe someone who was the key player in either creating the initiative, the idea, or a lot of times it's the person that kept us together and teamed up in the best way. They would come, they get the award. They're the ones that really get the recognition for that. So lifting others up, I think a lot of times we think of, my friend is having a bad day, so I need to lift them up. It's not just that. It really is about those shared successes, and making sure that everyone that was a part of any success that you have feels that part of your success as well.
So for our audience members who have a team developed and they're in that stage, because and I know that appearances can seem otherwise sometimes. And it's when those individuals are locked into appearances in the outer world that they don't realize that is a mirror of like you said, that internal guidance system saying go inward. But as a team leader and somebody who's leading a team, what are ways that you use to lift people up? I mean,
I think the first and foremost is always, you have to know as an individual what they perceive as being lifted up. So what I don't like being on stage and getting awards and all the attention and that kind of stuff. Personally, I feel more lifted up when someone will either call and have a one-on-one conversation with me and be specific about whatever I did that helped lead to that success. So that's kind of my, it's a little bit like love languages. Everyone has their own, kind of language of what works. And it goes back to, you've got to meet them where they are and not expect them to receive how you accept it. So I think the first thing is identify with each person on your team member. What is it that they appreciate from receiving recognition or, being lifted up in that way, and then do what they want, but the first part is you've got to know your team and you've got to know what they respond to. And I think sometimes, especially as women, we tend to, I'm going to figure it out. And you do this whole like dance in your head about it, when really, if you just ask, they'll tell you, And
I was going to say that. Ask them. Yeah.
Trying to guess around. So that was always my first step, either when I was forming a new team or got someone new on my team, was having that like personal conversation on, how do you like to be, communication, recognition, how to give directions, how to be part of a team, like that kind of stuff, and just get a sense of who they are.
What are ways that because I love this topic, and this topic I feel is so important for people who are just beginning as well. And they're a business owner, they're an entrepreneur, and they're trying to develop a team because they realize, you know what, I want to be in togetherness.
Yeah.
What are ways that you would reach out and find people to be part of your team?
You know, I think it really kind of starts with, you've got to obviously put the job out there, right? So the job's out there. So you're probably at that point where you're getting interviews, you know, and so you're starting to talk with people, and it's just really creating that, you know, kind of a wish list of knowing who you are as a leader, because that's probably the first step. Is you need to know what are the things that are important to you from a communication, strategy, you know, execution, all of the aspects of you as a leader, and obviously finding people that will fit into that mold too. But then knowing what your questions are and how to get down to, you know, how they show up, or how they speak up, or you know, how they look up, what are their vision and values. And more times than not, I'll sit down and I know those 6 things. So I'll ask very specific questions to those. Like, tell me the last time that, you know, you spoke up in a meeting or spoke up to your boss, you know, with a suggestion or a problem solving. So it's kind of those types of questions that you really ask to get down to if they're a right fit for what you're trying to build for your team.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea of specific questions. And the reason I ask is because I teach a program called Into Your Genius. And it's like a pyramid. And here's you at the top. This is your zone of genius. And as you come down the pyramid, on this side, you have your zones of excellence, your zones of competence. And at the bottom are your zones of incompetence. The object is what's coming down the pyramid for you is to fill those areas that build your team that are their zone of genius, and they're poking holes in your zone of genius from you trying to do it all.
Yes.
And it's those specific questions that I was wanting to know, because it's like, you know, people want to know how to do that.
Yeah, I used Gallup Strength Finders, you know, really kind of through my career. And so building teams around, you know, my strengths, and then understanding what my team's strengths are, and identifying where I have gaps, you know, or really in more cases what happens. And this is a, you know, probably a good reminder for everyone that would be hiring. Our tendency is to hire people like ourselves, you know, because we like ourselves, right? We want to be around a lot of people like ourselves. So I just really challenge everyone, when you're bringing people into your team, you know, there obviously needs to be a personality mesh and a skill set mesh, you know, and an experience mesh, or they wouldn't be in front of you for an interview anyway. So once you kind of get those, then it's really identifying what are your personal gaps, what are the gaps in your team, and asking questions and looking for that person that's specifically going to fill in those. You know, in my case with Strength Finders, it was leadership gaps is what we were always looking for. And not getting a team that's super heavy in one, it was quadrants with them, you know, in one of those quadrants or another, but finding a real balance. And that's when you get in, you know, we could probably get into a whole other conversation about high-performing teams and how to build, you know, high-performing teams that way. But yeah, the questions though, it's I always lead with, tell me about, you know, and when I'm teaching people how to interview, it's, if you can always use, tell me about, then you automatically make yourself not ask those close-ended questions, you know, and you're really getting, tell me about how you did X, how you showed up, how you spoke up in the meeting, how you know, teamed up when maybe it wasn't someone that was on your team. Tell me about a time you felt like you wanted to give up and you pushed all the way through, and tell me about the less success that you had, and how did you bring someone along, or did you bring someone along with that, and tell me about that. You know, so it's really just kind of framing those questions that way. And you will find, and I love it when I'm interviewing and they get all excited like I do, you know, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
I'm excited right now.
You got it. So I know, and that's when you know it. And when you have people that are like, huh, then you're like, okay, you're probably not going to be a good fit on my team for what I need right now. And that's okay too. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, lovely. Great conversation. I love it. I love it.
Good.
I think the things you're saying really resonated with me too, is like the team. So we talked about, you know, team and no competition, and Sherry and I, you know, we really really have like pushed that in Expanded Women for sure, because there's so many people, not just women, but so many people in general that have that mindset of competition. And I just wanted to speak to that for just a minute, because I actually had somebody message me today that they're like, so what do I do about this? You know, we have issues with, you know, they went, somebody I know went and used someone else. Like, do I stay here? Do I go? And I was like, no, other people are going to want you. Other people are going to need you. You have something that other person can't offer, you know? And I was really just like, I had to say that this morning, because I want people to know that we all have to work together, that we can lift each other's boats. And that's what we're doing here, right? Like providing that platform for you to speak about your business, for you to speak about leadership, and helping everyone else at the same time, right? So anyways, I just had to throw that in there. I'm sorry that it has nothing to do with what you just talked about, but but it is lifting others up too, right?
I love it.
It's all part of it.
I'll expand on it, certainly. Because, you know, obviously being in the education services industry, there's a lot of competition, and with STEM being, you know, kind of a hot topic, if you will, there's a lot of competition. But I look at that as, I think it's good, because I'm like, okay, I know where the base level is. So I take that, and you can look at all of your competition and see what do customers love about what they're doing? What do they not love? And I know, because I send my kids to those my kid to those camps, right? So like, I have a firsthand mom knowledge of that. And then I say, okay, how can I do it better? And what's my differentiator? You know, my differentiator personally to my competition in the area is, I only hire teachers that hold teaching certificates that have classroom experience, you know, within the last couple of years. I only hire teachers that have experience working with typical and non-typical learners. And so those two things in itself set me apart completely from the experience that anyone's going to get in any of the competition in our area right now. So it's important to know that. But I also have partners with some of our competition that I've met through different chamber events, and, you know, really through our network, that I help them too, you know. So like, we do a lot of, how can I get my kids in your building, and then you get exposure to my kids, you know, and my kids get exposure to you guys as well. And it gives me a place to be able to connect back with our community in a better and a different way. So all of those things are super important. The competition is important, but you can still raise the bar together when you're forming those partnerships, even if we're competition, you know. And that's been the really exciting part for me, is I've made some partners with, you know, some learning centers, and obviously some schools and private schools. The NRH Montessori in North Richland Hills was the first school that I was able to go in and do classes with, and, you know, they're great partners with us. They're a school, you know, they're still kind of competition, right? But we can lift all of those students up, because, you know, obviously we have to make money. I have to pay the bills. I have to, you know, pay the rent and all that stuff for everywhere that we go. But my mission is not to be a millionaire. You know, my objective is to impact and help children. And if that means that I'm teaming up and partnering up with people that others may perceive as my competition, you know, so what? Like, that's okay, because my mission is to help kids and help our community.
Holy mackerel, you know,
I know.
What you said to me, girlfriend, I mean, that speaks so clearly. You know, I always go back to center for myself. It's where everything opens up. And so this year in December, before the new year, I had a vision, and in it, I was told that the 4 words for this year are expand, trust, impact, and multiply.
There you go.
And everything you just said really centers around that. And I love how you broke that all down, because there's so much comparison in all of us. And we look at other people who appear successful, and a lot of times we won't even approach having any kind of relationship or partnership, because we've already projected in our own minds that they have something that we don't have, or they're my competition. Well, where you're sharing, here I go with the chills again, where you're sharing that from opening yourself up to looking at how can we come together, how can we benefit each other, you're expanding the opportunities and the people that you're going to pull to you for you to, in order for you to expand in your business and add greater, understanding and growth to other people.
Yeah. There are so many kids that there's no way I'm going to be able to touch all of them, you know? So if I can help anyone be able to impact some of our community's children, then I've done my job, even if they weren't in my camp or my class or, whatever that is. And, in retail and kind of going back, what formed, probably this mindset with myself is, we work with teenagers and 20-something-year-olds who, coming out of school, they're taught everything is a competition. Grades are competition. Sports is a competition. Everything is about getting the blue ribbon, getting the award, getting the scholarship to go to college, getting, everything is based on that. So they would come to us out in the real world as, maybe one of their first jobs that they had. And I always had to almost desensitize them to it and kind of bring them back that I don't need a superstar. I don't want superstars on my team. I need someone that if you found something that worked, we're going to share it with everyone so that everyone can benefit, because we're not in a job for you to be the best. We're in the job for our customers to get the best experience. And if you figured that out, you can't hoard that to yourself and keep it to your secret. We have to share that out in the world so that more customers and more people on our teams, have that tool in their toolbox to be able to have the same kind of success. And, obviously being in a small business and not having teams all over the country to be able to share with like I used to, I do that within our community with our other businesses.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. And I see that.
Very powerful, because it goes back to where you started this out with. It goes back to shifting projection, shifting that conditioned behavior, that modeled behavior, and in expanding and impacting people in a way that is creating a reciprocal flow worldwide, whether you realize it or not, because technology has opened up that opportunity for us now to, just as I said, expand, impact, and multiply worldwide the seeds that you're planting and the people that show up in your life. And then they're going out and watering those seeds. And it all started from the seed that you planted.
Hopefully that's the goal, right?
No, we know that's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah, we know that's happening.
So share with our audience, anything that you want to leave them with, lasting impressions, you want them to know. Share our audience.
Yeah, obviously the schooling is the hot topic right now. And I know where every mom and parent is feverishly trying to figure out what we're going to do. And it's really kind of this next pivot that we're doing in our business. So, I know there was announcements that Tarrant County is going to do only virtual learning, at-home learning, no in-person learning until September 28th. It was announced this morning. So that's leaving a lot of our parents kind of in a bind, right? So we've got a lot of working parents out there that I know are kind of freaking out about what am I going to do? And, just the experience that maybe they had with at-home learning in the spring. It can be a little scarring sometimes. I'm one of those moms that I'm definitely scarred from that. So there's a little bit of a panic setting in, I think. So I just wanted to offer, we're working on that piece of it too. There's this huge thing that's going on really throughout the entire country called microeducation, where, moms are kind of finding 3 or 4 kids in the same school district and in the same grade level, and either rotating through, or maybe one mom is taking on overseeing virtual learning for a small kind of pod, is what they're calling them, of kids to help them get through this time. And, what we're going to do is I'm looking for partnerships and places where we can kind of do some at home, or in a classroom, small class size, STEM and STEAM enrichment programs for these kids, because all of the at-home learning is virtual. And unless, parents have a closet full of manipulatives and Lego and, all the stuff, they're not going to get the same experience that they would get in a hands-on, in-person environment. So we have the ability to do safe, socially distanced, really hands-on, that are aligned with grade level core standards and core curriculum. So we have about 20 to 25 different curriculums that are aligned specifically to the educational system for the federal government. They are, you can use STEM grants, Title I, 21st century grants. They qualify for all of those. So even if there's these schools that are looking for how can we figure out how to do that, our programs qualify for all of those grant programs too. So I'm in the process right now of getting a schedule set up and trying to secure some additional locations. For sure, we're going to do 2 classes a week we have the ability to do 2 classes a week at Mid-Cities Montessori, which is in Bedford, Texas. We have a room that's set up at the front of the school. It's very contained, and we can do small groups there. And then I'm speaking with several cities right now with their Parks and Recs department to see how we can really help our community and help these parents and obviously the children that really need an opportunity to have some kind of social engagement, but also a hands-on educational experience taught by a certified teacher that's experienced in teaching typical and non-typical learners. So, we're in the process of getting that set up with some cities right now. But for sure, up on our schedule, we have it up on Mid-Cities Montessori. And, for all of our listeners out there, I would love to offer a discount for the Mid-Cities Montessori location. When you go onto our schedule on the website, you can pick which classes, and there's kind of directions on that. And then there's a code that you guys put up, the We Love Bedford, all caps. Can use this promo code for 20% off of any camps and classes that we're doing through the end of the year at the Mid-Cities Montessori location.
Awesome.
Okay, and how can they best get in touch with you? Where can they interact with you?
Yeah, our website is grapevine.snapology.com. That definitely has all of the in-person and virtual. We've been doing virtual since March 17th also, so we know not everyone can get out into summer camps or really even should. Like I said, we've been doing summer camps all summer in very small groups. They've been anywhere from 5 to 10 kids, at least once a week. And we've had so much success, and we've been able to do really great social distancing and all of the things that we need to do to keep the teachers and the students safe and kind of separated from each other. And then, so that's on our website, so you can see about in-person and virtual. And then our Facebook page is really where I talk to our community the most. So all of our social media handles are Snapology of Grapevine, so Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And that's where we share pictures and, do videos. I try to put up a lot of, helpful information and articles for things that parents can do with their kids. And a lot of research stuff, just kind of what research is showing to help keep parents, I guess, just aware of the impact that all of this potentially can, and really the positive impact that we can have if we look at it in the right way.
So I follow your Instagram, and I was really excited because during the quarantine, you had like the daily Lego, I guess, event or whatever. And it was like, they built this, like the one day my son did it, was a pirate ship. So he has like tons of Legos, and I was like, just use your imagination, come up with a pirate ship. And then you could post pictures about that. So I thought that was really cool, and to keep them engaged and give them something to do, because I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. Like he's 12, almost 13, and he's kind of in the middle
between.
Yeah, he's in the between, and like doesn't want to play games with mom anymore. Doesn't So I was like, what do I do with you?
Big men, and I have to tell you, all of especially at the beginning initiatives, and really what I think of is I'm a single mom and I run a business, and what am I going to do with my kids? So that's always my base level of where I'm coming from. So that daily build challenge, we started really immediately that first Monday after spring break, when we found out on Friday we weren't going back on Monday. So on Monday, I started doing a daily build challenge. So every morning we put a different challenge out, totally for free, but with the intention of giving mom an hour break in the morning to have coffee and like give to do for at least an hour to let them build while I was just trying to wake up and figure out like what's going on in the world. So
that was great.
Buffer was huge for me, certainly. But then as I started getting the pictures back and all the kids that were, posting their pictures of what they build, it truly brought so much joy. Because remember how scared we were that first week?
Oh yeah.
And then seeing all these smiles and these kids having fun, and that was really one of those like, okay, we're gonna be okay. The kids are still smiling, they're still having fun. We're helping mom out, we're engaged. So we did that probably about 6 weeks. So every day we put a new challenge out. We put a winner, and then they got to see their face on our Facebook page, all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and that was a lot of success. But then, once like real school learning at home started, that kind of, they had stuff to do. So we kind of put that away for a minute. But we shifted to virtual camps and classes really quick as well.
Mm-hmm. I need to introduce you to my friend Eric Swanson. He has a Habitude. He is the owner of Habitude Warrior.
Oh,
and he also and so he has that Speaking for Adults platform all on leadership and just all this amazing positivity, but he has a kids version of it as well, and building leadership in kids and stuff like that. And everything that you're sharing really goes hand in hand. He just had, right before the COVID, he had an event in Houston, Texas.
Awesome.
So, but I mean, now just seeing him on the, show up in the comments made me think, you two would be great at really getting together and, developing some more leadership within what you're doing in your platform.
Let's do it. Let's team up.
Absolutely. You guys would love each other. And he's very much like myself, very over the top, playful and laugh, and, really wants to develop this, positivity in kids and everybody in general. So this has been an amazing time together with you. I've thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it. It's very positive. I want to thank all of our audience. Thank you all for being here as always. Thank you for sharing this out with your groups and your profiles. We're all lifting each other up together. You can find us on expandedwoman.com. You can also find us on our Instagram page, Expanded Woman. You can find us on Facebook at Expanded Woman. And what is it, Misty, our Facebook groups? Oops, she's not here.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you see me? Okay. It's facebook.com/groups/Expanded Woman Business Network. Kind of long, but just search Expanded Woman Business Network. And then we have our regular Facebook page that is a little smaller, facebook.com/Expanded Woman. And also Instagram is instagram.com/Expanded Woman.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you,
Melanie.
Thank you.
And until next week, you have an amazing rest of the week.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.